So whenever there's something that we call problem, we have two possible paths. Either complain and feel bad and consider ourselves to be a victim and to whine about our suffering and about how inconsiderate other people are. Or we can take a proactive approach and see this as an opportunity to offer something valuable, to offer a solution and help the ummah with regards to this. And if you look at the prophets, if you read the stories of the prophets very carefully, if you look at the life of the companions, radiyallahu anhum, and the great Muslim scholars throughout the time, you would notice that this was their approach. There was no space in their life for complaining, whining, and playing the victim card. And the reason Allah allows problems in this life and issues and challenges, because that's an invitation. That's an invitation for us to address them. It's an opportunity for you to offer something, to offer a contribution and be rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what you offer. And that should be our attitude. The reason I brought all these examples is an incident that happened last week. The brothers from the media, Brother Mahmoud, last week, he says there was a clip that they shared on one of the social media platforms from here, from Abu Hurairah. And it was about the obligations of husband. Small clip from a big talk. So he says there was quite some reaction to that. So I had a look at it and I looked at the comments. And I don't say there were comments, there were battles. Because it was about the obligation, one side of the responsibility of the husband towards his spouse and his children. And then you find that females are just saying men are so bad, you don't find good men these days. All men are just for themselves. They don't fulfill their responsibilities. There are no good men these days. And then you look at the other side, which is the men, and all of them are saying, you know, women are ungrateful, you can't find a good wife these days. Everyone is just complaining and whining. Yes, the situation is not easy. But you know what? Complaining is no genius. Everyone can do it. Everyone can find faults. Everyone can complain. Everyone can whine and cry. Everyone can do that. Everyone can write off a huge segment of society or the community. Men are bad. Women are bad. There's nothing special in that. There's nothing even good about that. And if such a problem exists, and it does exist, that means that's an invitation. That's a calling. Instead of complaining about that, if you are a young man or a young woman, maybe this is an opportunity calling for you to address it, to contribute to the solution. Because you're not solving a problem by complaining about it. There must be reasons for why the state is as it is. And instead of wasting your time and your energy complaining, why not come up with something? And this is not limited to this problem. There are so many problems around. Life is full of challenges. And the reason we having this topic for this khutbah is that you will find this everywhere. You will find this in your private life. You will find it in public life. You will find it at many levels. And instead of complaining and just, writing people off or demonizing others, you can actually do something constructive. You can offer a contribution. And it doesn't have to be a flashy thing. It doesn't have to be something celebrated by the public. It could be something no one knows about but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's enough. That's enough. So you look at the Prophet ﷺ, every problem that he faced in his life, he turned into an opportunity. Because that's what every problem is. If you look at it from the other side, you're going to see an opportunity presenting itself. It's an attitude. And as a Muslim, we are supposed to develop an attitude of opportunity or a mindset of opportunity rather than a mindset of blame. Because we said many times that this life is difficult and it's full of challenges. And the reason Allah allowed these challenges into existence is that Allah is calling upon us to offer something good. If there is no problems, what are you going to contribute? What is contribution? It's the answer to a problem. It's an answer to suffering. So this is something that I believe we should consider in our private life. It doesn't have to be a big scale. It could be at a very limited scale, maybe in your family, maybe within yourself, or maybe with a small social circle, or maybe at the intellectual level, maybe at the scientific level, maybe at the social level, maybe working with the youth, maybe working with the elderly. But instead of complaining, make a positive impact. It's an act of worship. It's an opportunity to come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Two simple examples just on this kind of mindset. The Prophet ﷺ shows us how we can actually manage differences in marriage, since we already spoke about marriage, to manage differences and even inconveniences in marriage, but manage them wisely in a proactive way. The Prophet ﷺ says, لا يفرق مؤمن مؤمنة إن كره منها خلقا رضي منها آخر. Let not a husband hate or dislike his wife because he dislikes some of her traits or some of her actions, some of her behaviors. Because if you dislike something about her, there must be something else that you like about her. So that's a proactive approach. Instead of complaining and always focusing on the problems and the issues, you can actually change the perspective. And this could change the dynamics in the relationship. The other example is, actually these are two examples, but similar. About 20 years ago, there was a guy, a young man, in Iraq, in Baghdad. He noticed that in the streets there is a lot of children without parents, homeless children who have no parents, who are left to their fate. And he could have complained, like many people at the time, about that and about the state and about the government not doing what it should do and so on and so forth. But he decided to take a proactive approach. And he took under his wing 4 kids. He treated them as his own. He took them to his house. And then he taught them trades. He educated them very well. He taught them trades. And he emphasized the sense of family so that they don't feel even that they are orphans. He was like a father to them. And then the 4 children became 40, then 80, then 100. And people were inspired by his story and they started donating to him. And he has a big, huge house complex where he has his children. And his children now, these are the ones that he's taken care of, the ones he sponsored and he took care of. They're all now celebrated in the Iraqi society. When any one of them applies to jobs, they are given, an advantage. People respect them, people love them, and they don't feel as orphans. So this is someone who could have complained about that situation, but he decided to make a difference instead. A similar example is, I believe many of you saw on social media a few years ago, there was a Libyan brother who lives in the United States. And he takes under his wing a few of the orphan or children that are left in the street. And he takes care of them. And he helps them, he educates them, feeds them, and offers them true love. So these are beautiful examples. So this is an invitation. Consider this to be an invitation. Today, do this exercise. Look around in your life. What are you frustrated with? There must be many areas. And not every problem is for you, by the way. It's important to be wise and to use something that you believe in, something that you are passionate about, something that is something obviously that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, something that you would maybe invest a good chunk of your life into solving a problem and offering a contribution. It could be in any area of life, as long as it's, intrinsically good. Take that proactive approach. It's the way of the prophets. alayhimus salatu wassalam. It's the way of the righteous people all the time. And don't succumb to complaining. It poisons your heart. It really, and doesn't help anyone. It makes you cynical, makes you resentful. It poisons, your heart and your mind. You don't want to do that. If you see a problem, instead of complaining about it and just holding others accountable, which is not a good place. Usually people who complain, they are worse than the people they complain about. Because when you compare yourself to the worst people, you become worse than them. It's easier for you, have a justification. And that's one of the tricks of shaitan. The Prophet ﷺ says, "Man qal halaka an-nas fahuwa ahlakuhum." Whoever said people are corrupted, he is the most corrupted of them. Other people, it's not, their account is not with you, it's with Allah. So do something positive in life. Figure out something you want to contribute, and don't contribute for your own personal glory or your own personal legacy, as they say, which some Muslims promote. And don't get shaitan to deceive you about your own personal glorification. Do something for the sake of Allah. The concept of sacrifice. This concept of sacrifice. Sacrifice is what elevates humans. And now today, in today's culture, they call it victimhood. They call it victim. If you are to sacrifice, they say, oh, you are a victim. If you are a mother who sacrificed, oh, you're a victim to your kids. You wasted your life. If you sacrifice for the sake of your family, they say, oh, you are a maid and a servant. If you're a man, you sacrifice for your children, they would say, oh, you gave up opportunity. For what? For kids who are going to grow to be ungrateful. Life is made by sacrifice. Jannah is arrived at by sacrifice. Don't let this kind of pop culture poison your mind and push you away from sacrifice. Sacrifice is what makes humans humans. It is the noblest thing, because you don't actually give from yourself. You give something inferior to get something superior. Because you win at the level of the heart. You grow. You get more than what you give. Because Allah is the most generous. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us be people who contribute rather than people who complain, and to be proactive in approaching good